The village of Luwara was nestled deep within the shadow of Mount Usawa, its people known for their devotion to the ancient spirits. In the heart of the village stood a sacred temple where 7 masks lay hidden, each carved from the wood of the revered Mbua tree. These masks were no ordinary relics. They housed the spirits of Luwara's greatest ancestors, guardians of the village, protectors from unseen dangers. For generations, the masks remained untouched, sealed behind the iron doors of the temple, only to be worn by the chosen ones in times of grave peril. However, one stormy night, the air crackled with a strange energy, and the earth trembled as though the spirits themselves were warning of impending doom. The villagers awoke to the sound of the temple's iron doors being shattered, their protective seal broken. Imani, a young orphan with no family but the village itself, had always been drawn to the temple, feeling a connection she couldn't explain. She was the first to arrive at the scene, only to find the sacred chamber empty. The masks were gone. Panic spread through Luwara as the villagers realized what had been lost. Without the masks, the village was vulnerable to the dark forces that lurked in the world. The elders convened in the village square, their faces etched with fear and confusion. Among them was old Mzitano, the village's last surviving mask keeper, a man whose wisdom was as deep as the rivers of the land. He spoke of an ancient prophecy that foretold the theft of the masks, a prophecy that also spoke of a descendant of the original mask keepers who would rise to reclaim them. Imani listened from the edge of the crowd, her heart pounding. Could it be that she, the girl with no known family, was the one the prophecy spoke of? Her thoughts were interrupted when Mzitano approached her, his gaze intense yet compassionate. "You are the last of the mask keepers, Imani," he said, his voice trembling with both hope and fear. "It is your destiny to find the masks and restore balance to Luwara." Imani felt a surge of emotions, doubt, fear, and an overwhelming sense of responsibility, but she knew there was no turning back. The safety of her village, the only home she had ever known, depended on her. With Mzitano's guidance, she began her quest, armed only with the knowledge passed down through generations and a deep sense of duty. Imani's journey led her into the dense and foreboding Forest of Shadows, a place where few dared to tread. The forest was said to be alive, its trees whispering secrets and its paths ever-changing to confuse those who entered. It was here that Imani faced her first trial. As she ventured deeper, the air grew thick with mist, and the sounds of the forest became distorted, as if the very trees were speaking in a language she could not understand. Suddenly, she found herself surrounded by figures cloaked in darkness. These were the forest spirits, guardians of the first mask. They demanded proof of her lineage, testing her resolve and courage. Imani, remembering the stories Mzitano had told her, recited the ancient incantation that had been passed down through the generations of mask keepers. The spirits hesitated, their dark forms wavering before revealing the first mask, the mask of courage. The mask glowed with an inner light, and as Imani donned it, she felt a surge of power and clarity. The path through the forest became clear, and the spirits, now pacified, allowed her passage. With the first mask in her possession, Imani continued her journey to Mount Usawa. The second mask, the Mask of Wisdom, was said to be hidden within the mountain's labyrinthine caves. But the mountain was treacherous, known for its deadly cliffs and deceptive echoes that had led many to their doom. Imani climbed the steep rocky paths, her every step echoing back at her with unnerving precision. The mountain seemed to mock her efforts, its echoes growing louder, confusing her sense of direction. At one point, she found herself at the edge of a deep chasm, the echoes around her creating the illusion of solid ground where there was none. But Imani had the mask of courage, and with it, the strength to push past her fear. She closed her eyes, blocking out the disorienting echoes, and listened instead to the faint, true sound of wind rushing through the caves. Following this sound, she found the entrance to the cave where the Mask of Wisdom awaited her. Inside, she faced another trial. The cave was filled with riddles, each one more perplexing than the last. Imani knew that only by answering the riddles correctly could she hope to retrieve the mask. Hours passed as she pondered the questions, drawing on the knowledge she had gained from her time with Mazitano. Finally, with the last riddle solved, the Mask of Wisdom appeared before her, shimmering in the dim light of the cave. As she placed it alongside the Mask of Courage, Imani felt her mind sharpen, her thoughts clearer than ever before. The third mask, the Mask of Truth, was hidden beneath the River of Illusions, a place where nothing was as it seemed. The river's waters were said to show visions of one's deepest desires and darkest fears, ensnaring those who could not see through the illusions. Imani approached the riverbank, where the water shimmered with an unnatural light. As she looked into the river, she saw visions of her past, her parents, whom she had never known, and the life she could have had if they had lived. The vision was so vivid, so real, that for a moment, she wanted nothing more than to dive into the water and join them. But the Mask of Wisdom warned her of the river's deceit. Imani forced herself to look away, focusing instead on the task at hand. She knew that the mask was hidden beneath the water, but to retrieve it, she would have to confront the illusions without succumbing to them. Taking a deep breath, Imani stepped into the river. The water was cold, but as she submerged herself, the visions intensified, pulling at her emotions. The faces of her parents called out to her, begging her to stay. But Imani, guided by the Mask of Wisdom and the courage she had gained, saw through the illusions. She reached down into the riverbed, her fingers closing around something solid, the Mask of Truth. As she emerged from the water, the illusions faded, and the river returned to its natural state. With the Mask of Truth now in her possession, Imani felt a newfound sense of clarity. She could see through lies and deceptions, her path forward clearer than ever. The remaining masks were scattered throughout the land, each protected by its own set of trials. Imani traveled far and wide, retrieving the Mask of Strength from the Cliffs of Thunder, the Mask of Honor from the Valley of Spirits, and the Mask of Unity from the Desert of Silence. Each trial tested her in different ways, but with each mask she claimed, her power and resolve grew. Finally, only one mask remained, the Mask of Power, hidden in the heart of the ancient city of shadows. The city was a place of darkness, its streets deserted, its buildings crumbling with age. It was said that the city had once been the center of a great empire, but the greed of its rulers had led to its downfall. The Mask of Power was the last remnant of that empire, its strength unmatched, but also its danger. Imani entered the city, her heart heavy with the weight of the final task. The city was silent, its darkness oppressive. As she walked through the empty streets, she felt the presence of something watching her, a malevolent force that sought to stop her from completing her quest. At the center of the city, she found a massive throne room, its walls adorned with symbols of power and domination. There, on a pedestal, lay the Mask of Power, glowing with a dark energy. But as Imani reached for the mask, a figure stepped out of the shadows. A man cloaked in darkness, his eyes burning with an unnatural light. "You have done well to come this far," the man said, his voice echoing through the room. "But the Mask of Power is not for the likes of you. It belongs to those who seek to rule, to dominate. You are nothing more than a girl unworthy of its strength." Imani, though afraid, stood her ground. She knew that the Mask of Power was not just a tool for domination. It was a symbol of the strength that comes from unity, from the bonds between people. And she knew that she had the strength to wield it, not for herself, but for her village, for the people she loved. "I am not here to rule," Imani said, her voice steady. "I am here to protect. The masks are not meant for those who seek power for themselves. They are meant for those who protect others, who use their strength for good." The figure hesitated, its form wavering as if struggling against itself. Imani stepped forward, her resolve unwavering, and reached for the mask. As her fingers closed around it, the figure let out a cry of rage and vanished, leaving only a faint shadow behind. With the final mask in her possession, Imani returned to Luwara, the masks held safely in a sacred bundle. The village, once on the brink of despair, was now filled with hope. The elders gathered in the temple, and with reverence Imani placed each mask back in its rightful place. As the last mask was set on its pedestal, the temple was filled with a radiant light. The spirits of the ancestors, now at peace, blessed the village with their protection once more. The land, once plagued by fear and darkness, was restored to its former glory, the crops flourishing and the people thriving. Imani, the last of the mask keepers, was hailed as a hero, but she knew that her journey was not just about retrieving the masks. It was about understanding the responsibility that came with power, and the importance of using that power for the good of others. The story of Imani and the 7 Masks of Luwara became a legend, a tale passed down through generations, a reminder of the balance between power and responsibility, and the enduring strength of those who protect and serve their people. And so, the masks remained in the temple, guarded by the spirit of Imani, waiting for the next time they would be needed to protect the village of Luwara.